My name is Paul Holm. I'm Professor of Environmental History at Trinity College Dublin in Ireland. My interest in the CONCHA project is really to learn from my colleagues in Latin America and Spain, Portugal, about the southern crossing across the North Atlantic. My field of expertise is really the northern crossing, people moving out of Britain, Ireland, Scandinavia, across the North Atlantic. It's interesting to compare the two crossings because they are so different. To the north, we are really looking at islands and small havens as stepping stones in building a settlement culture of small fishing ports. Whereas in the south, of course, we are looking at developments of big shipping and big cities. We want to understand what was the relative value of these two crossings, what were the environmental factors, what were the economic factors, and what were the social consequences of these crossings. For me, the first surprise really was to look at the relative value of the two crossings. The southern crossing, of course, in the 15th century was all about gold and silver. And we know about the big ship flotillas going across the Atlantic. In the north, this was a much more lower key expansion of small fishing vessels. What I did as my contribution to CONCHA was to try and measure up the economic value of these two crossings. And I was surprised that actually when you look at the two, the number of people involved were roughly the same, about between 5,000 and 10,000 people in any given year, and the economic value sort of was almost on the same scale. So it tells me that in addition to understanding the Atlantic expansion from a European point of view, it's not just about the mining, the going for gold and silver in the south, it's also going for the marine life in the north, the fish, the cod, the fur, the walruses. All of that was part of that huge European expansion.
I'm Ingo Heidbrink, Professor of Maritime History with Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia within the US. Yeah, and basically when it comes to the project, what interests me most with the CONCHA project is really bringing the ocean back into this relation. We are talking about the Atlantic networks, we are talking about the crossing across the Atlantic, but in many aspects the Atlantic itself is really not really included in this approach, and I'm really looking forward with all these colleagues from the various disciplines here that we can bring back the Atlantic into the project, into historical research. And therefore I'm hoping that, for example, if we are looking at the northern developments in the Atlantic, at the southern developments in the Atlantic, that we can understand why the different oceanographic conditions in those two areas are basically provided the base or the reason or the explanation for two comparable but different historical developments. I think the expectations are what I'm already seeing now, that despite of having these great differences in oceanographic conditions, that means we are talking about a cold ocean, we are talking about a comparable warm ocean, we are talking about currents in current systems into one or the other direction, that we are seeing a good number of differences, but when it comes to human activity, despite of focusing on different industries, different extractions, that means the ocean itself in the north or land-based resources in the south, we are seeing, to a certain degree at least, comparable developments when it comes up to building networks, to building empires, to decolonization later on. And so the economic importance of discovering a new world, utilizing a new world that basically, despite of this new world, the Atlantic world being different in the north and the south, the networks established were, at least comparable, maybe to a certain degree even close or directly parallel in structural terms.